Board meeting to order. So on behalf of the board, we acknowledge that York Region is located on the traditional territory of many indigenous peoples, including Anishinaabe, Honenoshi, Huron-Wendat, and the Métis people, and the treaty territories of Honenoshi. Mississaugas are the First Credit Nation and Williams Treaty First Nation. Today, this area is home to many diverse indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of this land. We can also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as our closest First Nation community. Well, members of the board, welcome. It's a great sunny day, and we've got a bit of work to do today. It's a pretty heavy agenda going forward, and we have our finance meeting at the back end of it. So is there any disclosure of interest? Not seeing any. So the confirmation of public minutes of April 24th, 2024. Thanks, Norma. Seconded by Walter. Were there questions on the minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Against, the motion's carried. So we have one presentation, members of the board. It's Beyond the Curve, an overview of emerging crime trends. Chief will introduce it, and then we'll bring item number 8.4 forward after the presentation. So Chief, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. While our manager of strategic services gets set up, Steve Pinto. So I'll turn it right over to Steve. Steve will walk you through the presentation. We can answer any questions at the end. And
good. Thanks, Chief, and welcome, sir. And just want to recognize today is National Boss Day. Just so you all know, today is National Boss Day. So just so you acknowledge, everybody acknowledge that today? That's perfect. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Thank you, Chief and Chair and members of the board. Details on the region's crime statistics are provided in the annual statistics report that was shared with the board today. In today's presentation, we're going to be focusing more on the emerging crime trends so we can better understand the story behind the curve. So let's start with some high-level questions. What's the high-level crime picture in the region? What are the new trends YRP needs to respond to? And what does the data reveal about what's driving the change in crime statistics? So before we look at a specific crime data, I want to emphasize that York Region remains a safe community. Overall, crime rates have remained consistently lower than the national and provincial averages. In fact, until last year, the majority of YRP's work involved non-criminal incidents. These include, for example, mentally ill apprehensions, suicide attempts, missing persons reports, and bylaw offenses. So our findings from the annual statistics report is that overall crime levels are on the rise for the fourth year since the pandemic started. This is what we're calling the curve, and we can now consider it as a trend. We can explain some of the numbers due to things like the bounce back to normal after the pandemic when numbers were very low, as well as implementing new technology such as the automatic license plate recognition that helps identify crimes in real time faster. We also continue to make reporting crime more efficient for the public, such as introducing additional online reporting tools to make it easier to report to police. But if you look at the national picture, you can see how York Region is just starting to outpace the provincial and national average. In 2022, the region crime severity index saw the highest increase in 12 years at 21.3%. The data also shows the challenge of YRP having to deal with a steadily increasing caseload since 2021 and how this continues to affect our clearance rates. So in absolute terms, we actually cleared 2,100 more cases in 2023, but the volume of crime means our clearance rates cannot keep pace. This increase in cases speaks to the focus our officers place on seeing the investigation through to the end. We'll hear later how the clearance rates are affected by an increase in the complexity of cases, particularly crimes which cross borders. Overall, though, the clearance rates are decreasing at a faster rate compared to the provincial and national averages. 59% of our cases, the greatest proportion of our caseload, relates to property crime. And we're seeing a 4-year increase in property crime, which suggests that this is a trend. You can see this increase reflected in specific types of property crime, such as break and enter and theft. Within this property crime data set, we can see auto theft crime trends increased 29% last year, while close to 4,000 stolen vehicles. Compared 5 years ago, that's an increase of 185%. And we'll have more details on this in a later slide. The data suggests a correlation between residential break and enters and auto thefts, as more offenders are entering garages to steal vehicles. Within property crime, we are noticing an increase in retail theft and specifically theft conducted by organized crime. Police services are all experiencing the increase in retail thefts from large retailers like the LCBO, Loblaws, and Walmart, so it's important to work in partnership with each other. One of the principal findings beyond the curve is the violent crime as a major contributor to the increase in crime. While there are fewer violent crimes cases compared to property crime, the growth rate does outpace it. In fact, there has been a 63% increase in violent crime over the past 5 years, and we'll highlight some of these areas in the following slides. Part of the increase includes crimes including robbery, sexual violations, home invasions, assault numbers. Sexual violations includes the increases we're seeing in intimate partner violence. Robbery includes the increase in retail theft, carjackings, street-level robbery, as well as home invasions. The nature of violent crime reveals itself in weapons crime data. Compared to 5 years ago, more weapons are being used to commit crime. Of the 761 crimes with weapons, approximately 30% or 218 of those weapons were guns. In 2023, York Regional Police officers encountered 215 armed subjects compared to 117 the previous year, and that's an increase of 84%. In frontline terms, members are seizing more weapons, and they're seeing more weapons being used during criminal incidents. The growing reality is our members are facing more and more weapons in the community and increasing cases like risk impacting their mental health. One other statistic to note is that there were 183 charges laid against youth for assault with a weapon. And just for clarity, weapons cover anything from guns, knives, to a variety of other instruments of harm. The stolen vehicle rate has increased year over year over the past 5 years. But with this trend, you can also see the growing recovery rate, which is a testament of YRP's investigative capability and recent campaigns. During 2023, the Auto Cargo Theft Unit conducted a number of major projects, resulting in the arrests of 49 individuals and recovered 392 vehicles valued at over $31 million. Over the course of the year, our officers collaborated with the CBSA and CP Police to intercept shipping containers containing stolen vehicles in the rail yards before they hit the Port of Montreal. This interception effort helped recover over 160 vehicles valued over $11 million. Carjackings are a particularly violent form of vehicle robbery, and although few in number, have been growing. In addition, the number of cases involving firearms peaked in 2022, but still remained high as a proportion in 2023. We're also seeing growth trends in intimate partner violence, an especially worrying form of violent crime. Intimate partner violence has been increasing since the pandemic and again increased in 2023. An almost 10% increase was observed. Some of these numbers can be attributed to increased knowledge of available resources and the increased ease of reporting for victims due to social media campaigns. For instance, YRP ran awareness campaign ads on YRT buses mentioning the availability of YRCCS, where victims and survivors can access services. We can only speculate for the rise in these cases, but aside from the pandemic, we are all aware that there are many growing social pressures that can result in these types of violent crimes, such as inflation, interest rates, geopolitical conflicts, stress of the new normal post-pandemic. These incidents not only put a strain on our resources, but on those of our partner agencies. This drives our engagement to support them, work together to provide awareness and training. We're hearing a lot from frontline members and investigative teams that crime has become more complex, organized, globalized, and time-consuming to solve. We can see trends in specific data points which bear out these observations. Although crime has been more complex than ever, YRP continues to strategically utilize their partnerships with other agencies and border security to swiftly and accurately charge individuals responsible of the crime while recovering residents' property. Together, these trends demonstrate the importance of looking beyond the curve to understand the crime story in York Region. The number of hate crime incidents show a steady long-term increase. It's important to note they do remain marginal, even taking into account the Israeli-Hamas conflict in the Middle East. Since that incident, the number of hate crime incidents towards Jewish and communities and the Muslim communities spiked. However, this has since sharply declined because of the strategic deployment of resources in affected York Region neighborhoods. The principal reasons an individual or group is targeted in hate crime in 2023 were race and ethnicity at 46.4%, religion at close to 40%, and sexual orientation at 10.9%. We've also noted that the increase in these incidents may be attributed to the rise in hate crime reporting, not just the crime itself. York Regional Police has long recognized that we are part of a global community. You do not have to look too far to see where news in other countries affect our community. It can inspire social disorder, crime, and injury. We cannot change these things that happen elsewhere, but we can try to improve how we deal with the fallout from these incidents here in York Region. In summary, so what does this all amount to? Seeing all of these trends together would point to the fact that we are entering a new era in policing in York Region. The crime rate is in long-term growth. We're tackling more cases than ever before, and this is impacting our clearance rate. Trend data also shows we are facing a series of new challenges. There's more violent crime, and crime is more complex, involving more people, more networks, and more sophistication. Finally, crime is becoming much more globalized in scale, such as the globalization of vehicle theft. In short, understanding the story behind the curve will further our awareness on what is needed to address the new challenges in this ever-changing world. And I'll open to questions. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Steve, and very well said, and just good data they have there. Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Steve, thank you so much. Excellent job. I just wanted to add a little context on the gun side of it as well, because we didn't split out guns. We kept it in the weapons category. But and we're going to talk more about this at our upcoming presentation of May 30th and get into this a little bit further. But the reality is our officers have been exposed to more handguns and more guns in the last year over year. I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to give some context to it. And I think the number is somewhere around 180%. So as we see 84% increases in those encountered with weapons, it's 180% in relation to guns alone. So that should be, you know, that causes a lot of concern for all of us, mainly for our frontline people who are dealing with it day in and day out. And it's something to definitely keep in mind, as Steve mentioned, you know, the change in the complexity of crime, which is a lot of what we'll be talking about on May 30th. So without further ado, if there's any questions, by all means, we can answer any questions.
Mario.
Thanks, Steve.
Just have to put your microphone on there. Yeah, thank you. Yep, it's on.
Hello.
Yep.
Yes. I know the schedules were for 4 years, 4-year period time. Do you add the increase of the population in York Region in those 4 years so that we could have a comparison, really the truth of what much crime had gone up?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. We do have that information. So we do base crime also on crime rate. So that's per 100,000, and that has also shown an increase. It's within the report that you have before you. And it does contain the crime rate, which does show, takes in consideration the increase in population. I don't have the specific numbers of the actual population growth, but it has increased over the 4 years for sure. I'm happy to specifically provide that information though and data in it. Absolutely.
Anything else, Mario? Mario? Anything else?
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Walter?
I have some unusual friends in the United States, and we've had a recent chat about organized crime activity. Their view is that we are increasingly being subjected to increasingly sophisticated organized crime activity in Canada as a function of a lot of things, not the least of which is federal legislation and the courts and all kinds of other things. We are really being subjected to not only the things that are readily visible, like car theft, but as you know, because you're dealing with this, the sub rosa activities of crime, which are complex and long-term and ongoing. And your reference to complex crime is very much appreciated because we are into the age of complex crime. Because we're no longer dealing with single organizations, we're dealing with organizations that have come together and made joint venture arrangements that facilitate all kinds of things from car theft to fentanyl use across the country. So again, the challenge for policing is you're no longer dealing with a single organization in many cases, but international rings, complex structures that are facilitating each other's activities in a context that, unlike the United States, appears to be more conducive to success in criminal activity. There are really very significant impending challenges on the horizon that are really quite frightening. And one of the elements of that, again, came up in your presentation, is cybercrime. At this point in time, it appears from, again, credible sources in the United States, and that's reflected in your own statistics, it appears that we are in for an increasing wave of challenges, more complex challenges. And adding one more component that is really quite frightening and is partially related to the last several points you made, and that is crime has not only associated with its own element, it has brought in and facilitated the interests of terrorist groups and terrorist activities. And that's happening in many countries, and it's certainly not limited here, as we recently heard from the incidents in Western Canada, where a criminal organization facilitated a government interest in the interest of taking down a particular group of people and for purposes of intimidation and other goals. So, and all of that has been addressed. The question is, as it appears that organized crime and complex crime, to use your terms, is increasingly assuming the initiative, the question is, how well and how effectively is that being addressed in terms not only of the policing activities of the service here in York Region, but in the complex interactions that you have? Are you getting the support you need? Are you getting the engagement that you need from INSET and other people? And is the momentum and the initiative posed by organized crime outstripping the capacity to respond to it as it continues to develop very, very rapidly? And that's not a you problem, Chief, or a YRP problem. It's a complex policing problem, and it's a government policy problem. And on the government policy side, we are way behind the curve on this. On the policing side, the question is, it's infinitely better, as you know, to be proactive than reactive. Do you have the resources? Do you have the support? And what things do you believe need to be done in order to facilitate our capacity to respond to what is really going to bite us much harder in the future than it's biting us right now?
Lots of questions and lots of conversation through you, Chair. The short answer is, do we have everything we need? The short answer is no. Are we trending in the direction of getting to that point? Yes. In terms of the support, we are very well connected across the country through whether it's be provincially CISO, INSET. We are embedded in all of those programs and are getting real-time intelligence in as expeditiously as possible to help us stay ahead of issues that are trending in the community. The challenge always is, how does it find its way here into York Region as we continue to plan for what is happening here in York Region, right? Because we can talk about terrorism, okay, but what's the effect right here in York Region today? You know, we have our own resources to delve into that, but we don't have enough of those types of resources. And the point of being proactive is really the discussion we're talking about on May 30th when we talk to regional council. It's about planning for the future, right? And the things we need to be thinking about, a lot of which you've hit on today, whether it be organized crime, when you simply look at how the whole auto theft, I'll call it regime, is being dealt with right now, or is being used right now to fund other activities. To your point, it is finding its way into funding terrorism and other types of organized crime activities, right? So we know that it's not just about the theft of autos and about the financial piece to that, which is significant, right? As you look at how much it costs for, or what they're getting for a vehicle when they ship it overseas, but that's a significant amount of money to actually fund other types of organized crime and criminal activities. The whole cyber crime piece, should concern everybody. And we haven't even gotten into the whole AI component of this. And that is something we should be planning for. We are planning for, as you know, we will be heavily regulated, as you know, because AI will have significant uses for policing. We'll be heavily regulated, criminals will not. So how do we stay ahead of that? That's going to be a significant challenge for every police agency across the country. But those discussions are being had on a regular basis. We're planning with our internally with our teams to stay ahead of that. But it is a complex issue, right? And you have to know the complexities of each and every crime and how auto, as an example, the whole process of how it's occurring before you can get into the weeds and figure out how do we solve it ahead of time, right? Just like we did when we went to Ottawa and asked for further funding and changes in legislation and all of those things. That's, you know, but look, we're just there now. We're just getting the outcomes of that now, right? And, you know, I wouldn't even get into the whole province of Ontario having the lowest conviction rate amongst all provinces across the country. That plays a role in why people are coming to Ontario to commit crime, right? So that's got to be addressed, and that's larger than York Regional Police, but it is a national issue that we need to be discussing. So I'll leave it at that.
Walter?
Just a couple of follow-up points. One of the most effective tools is, again, something you're very familiar with because you've instituted it. The question is capacity, and that is developing intelligence resources. And certainly liaison with other services is a critical part of that process. But intelligence resources do two things. It's a force protector, as you know, and it's a force multiplier. And again, it's not my purview to go into how you develop that, but it's an absolutely critical point in terms of combating threat. And I'll leave it there. One other thing that you know that I've already addressed outside of the purview of this meeting is just a quick follow-up question. The threat to police officers has increased dramatically, as you've indicated in your presentation. And it's the kinetics of that threat that bode ill for the future. One of the questions I'd asked you earlier, Chief, and again, that was in a different discussion, was the issue of changing protective equipment, specifically frontal plate body armor. This is a bug I have. I don't think it's adequate to the nature of the threat that is now being faced in terms of both frequency and lethality. And I would look to explore that with you, certainly not necessarily today, but at another time, because I know there's new legislation, but it's time to move to new technology and new equipment. And I understand that police officers are reluctant for obvious reasons. There's weight concerns, but there is new technology out there, and it seems extremely cost effective and useful to increase the protection of officers on the street because precisely of the figures you've shown us up here, that the threat has increased and the nature of not only the frequency of weapons, but the nature of the weapons that's being involved in crime. So I'd look to pursue that with you further. I appreciate your presentation. My concern is, again, that this is not a linear acceleration. This is increasingly curving towards an exponential acceleration of threat that really has the capacity for various failures, and most particularly policy failures by government. They're too slow. they're too slow in facilitating the kind of work that YRP and other services are doing. And that length of time is compounding the speed and the acceleration of threat to communities, certainly including this one.
Okay, thanks, Walter. Any further, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine are more specific to the report.
Sure, go ahead. Report's on the floor.
Good, which is page 21, where you break it down based by the municipality. So year over year would be nice in there. This is just for future, because this is a snapshot of 1 year. Be nice to see year over year. You've done it throughout your presentation. The other one is percentage of personnel spread across the region based on the crime statistics by the municipality. And then the last comment I would have is after the May meeting, and I take it more into September, I would request a roadshow of this to each municipality and with all due respect, answers. It's great to show this is what's happening, and quite frankly, it's not a great picture, right? Like, we're all in the room. The elephant is crime's going up. Well, we're in charge of trying to make it come down. So what are we doing to make it come down so that the 2024 stats will look much better? And I know you spoke already about it in terms of the curve and how to get ahead of the curve, but we need those answers too, because it's great to say this is what's happening. Well, what are we doing to change this?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, points well made. And I actually absolutely agree that it's a good idea to come out and present this information with all of that piece, which, we didn't talk about it here, but we have a lot of projects on the go. We have a lot of work on the go. We have a lot of planning underway that should be able to address all of those questions. And we actually welcome the opportunity to present that anywhere.
Yeah.
So by all
And
means.
that's important that the message gets out.
Yeah.
Because we in this room know that you're doing great work. The public just sees car thefts going up, right? So they believe it's less safe out there. So we've got to change that.
And a big portion of that is, the whole marketing and communication section of YRP is changing as we speak. And a lot of the work they're doing is to answer all of those questions in a more real-time way, in a more regular way. Because we've heard loud and clear, and we've talked about it before, about that message just isn't getting out. So always, and we have to be doing this on an ongoing basis, and we're fully alive to that and planning for that. So thank you.
Walter?
A follow-up question, I missed it in my notes here. I would be curious to get comments as appropriate in this forum on your planning for the rapidly evolving vertical city and density issues, and particularly in parts of York Region. I mean, the community is changing fundamentally, not just in terms of population, but in the dynamics of population because of the vertical cities. And that is an accelerating trend, obviously. There's a concentration of the rapid development of the vertical city, particularly in parts of the region. And planning needs to appreciate how quickly that is coming online and the problems that are associated with the vertical city and density. And I don't know how that is part of the process, but I assume that you've taken that into account. But certainly the volume of that is increasing with tremendous rate, as is the concentration of population moving into York Region. So all of those are contributing factors to problems on the horizon that really are already here.
Okay. Thank you. Chief, you want nothing? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say, sorry. Yeah, we are completely planning for that. It is part of the presentation on May 30th to talk about the complexities around vertical cities and what that brings, the challenges, the opportunities, and how we police differently, because in some vertical cities, they're not even streets in those vertical cities, right? They're buildings with no streets. So it's a different way of policing, a different approach, and a different methodology as we continue to work towards, still solving crime, still keeping people safe as we normally do.
Good. Steve, you you asked for a roadshow. What present, you were looking for this presentation or a presentation, like everybody's invited, your councils are invited to next Thursday, but what presentation, just so that the staff, chief and his team, if you're gonna go to a roadshow, what are we looking for?
Basically this, and like I said, with one more slide about what we talked about, the actions. And it's great that council can come. It's that when you come to our local councils and present, the newspapers are there. The different newspapers. I don't know if
Oh, yeah.
all the other newspapers have been invited to come to the May.
They're all open, it's all open. It's open
I-
council meeting,
I-
you know the police are coming.
uh,
I hear you.
You
But
know,
not- they
every
don't always
council
come.
meeting, there's a
know.
paper, in each municipality
Okay.
reporting on it.
Sure. Okay, so you understand what they're looking for going forward?
Yeah, we will determine what's the best approach and address it, no problem. I just want to add some context here. This is the first time we've done a presentation on the annual stats report, which I forgot to mention. It goes hand in hand with the report at 8.4. Because we want to bring context to the reports. Reports are one thing, but when you can sit down and have a presentation to actually get into the weeds a little bit and see it, it has more of an impact. So I'm glad you're identifying the fact that this presentation would be beneficial for all municipalities. Today, it was really a presentation to bring context to the report itself, the outcome, and what we do afterwards, I think is an added piece for those types of presentations. I agree. And something we can push out as well through our marketing communication team as we go out and do the roadshow in the fall. So.
Thank you. Okay, so it's moved by Steve and second by Walter. Receive the presentation and the recommendations on 8.4. Thanks, Steve, and your team. Thank you. And good luck on the roadshow. All those in favor? Against, the motion's carried. They, let me know when those road shows are. I would like to come. There are no deputations and communication consideration of reports. We have 8.1 to 8.7. Is there any of those reports? We've done 8.4. Is there any of those other reports that anyone would like to specifically pull and talk about? 8.1 to 8.7. Any of those reports? Going to ask Linda and Madeline to move those recommendations if there's no further comments on those reports. Not seeing any. All those in favor? Against, the motion's carried. On unfinished business, you have some upcoming events coming forward. I want to express upon our appreciation to the organizations of the Pan Dinner, Chief. It was a great dinner. It was a great event. And I think the last presentation of the one officer was the most touching I've seen since I've sat in this chair, even at the region for a long, long time. Yeah, it was very touching and very sad in a way, but the gentleman saved a lot of lives as officer. So with thanks for that. We have talked a little bit about the May 30th, 2024. It's next Thursday. All are invited. It is in person. So please, if you're welcome to attend. If you're unable to attend, I understand. Council will get a briefing tomorrow on it going forward to make sure they are coming. It is what we're doing, looking forward to. You'll get a bit of a snapshot of that today. But as we go forward, this is the plan the chief is going to bring forward to see where we're at and what we're looking to do going forward. And it's very critical on that. So I'm hoping that the board will take 2 hours, will be from 9 o'clock to 11. Sorry, Linda, we're starting at 9, not 9:30. I know, I'm just kidding, Linda. Don't you give me that figure. Linda, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Good morning, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Apologies for not being in person, but I have a Vaughan Council meeting and I wouldn't want to be caught speeding from Newmarket to Vaughan by one of our fine officers. So I thought it best to work from home this morning. Well, yeah, we could do that. They would probably have to catch me first. Chairman, just a quick question on the May 30th. I mean, I heard you mention that it's open to all members of councils, which I wasn't aware of. Was there a formal invitation sent to our clerks to invite all our ward councillors? 'Cause-
This is a Police Services Board presentation, and I did put it out to the clerks, and I'm not sure if it was sent out
Okay,
to clerks. I realize that some would come. It's going to be a full house, I know, Linda, but after tomorrow, I could send out another, I could send out a memo to the clerks advising of them of it. But I assume some members, I know some mayors have taken it to their councils and said, there is a police presentation you may want to attend. And I've talked to some members of council from across the region, and say they're planning on attending. Other than
Okay.
that, that's it.
I'll make sure that it gets forwarded to the ward councillors, because I think there's quite a few of them. When you look at the stats, I mean, Vaughan is like unfortunate, the king of the hill of all these. So I think there would be an opportunity for some of our ward councillors to come up and better understand the system, so we can relay that information to our residents. So,
Good.
Chairman, yeah, that's it. But just quickly on PAN, thank you to all involved, and the presentation to Sergeant Hunter was amazing. I've been going to these since the late 90s. I've never seen a room full of people almost in tears with a standing ovation. So he did save lives, Chairman, as you said. So well done to the PAN committee and everyone involved. Thank you.
Yeah, it was, I know we've had other ones like that, but yeah, I can still standing beside him. Yeah. And I did thank him, and he did say, he didn't say much. He just kind of smiled, and that's just the way it was. But anyways, no, it's good. And so members of the board, we have been discussing this for a while, and I want to do it in open session. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the board that we have agreed to extend the term of the Chief McSween for 2 years, which will take effect on May 1st, 2025, and he'll have 2 more years after that. We are very pleased with this continued leadership of York Regional Police and the support of the board. And we know he's very well recognized across the province of Ontario, so we're very proud to be able to extend his contract for 2 years, starting as of May 1st, 2025, which was his termination of his contract. So the board has come together, and I'm going to ask Mayor Pellegrini and Regional Councillor Jackson to move the motion that we extend the contract for Chief McSween till May of 2027 with the additional 2 years. And it will be a press release out later on this morning, early afternoon, about that going forward. So welcome, sir, and congratulations.
Thank you. Chair, through you, thank you so much. Thanks to all members of the board. I really want to also throw a shout out and a huge thanks to the whole team here. You can occupy this chair and do the job as best you can, but you can't do it without a great team of people. And I'm most times the deliverer of the information, but it's the team here. I say behind me, but usually they're in front because they lead so well themselves that they're just a great group of people to work with. And I'm honored and privileged to assume this role and continue on for a couple of more years. And I appreciate the support along the way, and I look forward to the next, 3 years now, because we've got a year left here. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, we have to vote on it yet. We have to really make sure we get a vote on this. All those in favor? Against, the motion carried, unanimous, sir. Well done. Good. Was there any other business from members of the board? Just there's some upcoming events, so I'm hoping that some will attend some of those events. And now, anything else, Anitra? Yeah, I do. I got to do that.
We forgot to introduce our new police advisor. He's here today, Graham White.
Oh, so
Just
go
that
ahead.
quick.
You're here, sure, go ahead. Anitra's got a great importance as a new person in.
I apologize. I forgot to have the chair introduce our new police advisor, that gentleman in the far corner there, Graham White, who has taken the place of GT Sahota, who's currently in another position at this time. We don't know if that's temporary, will be permanent, but please, warm welcome to Graham. He will be the point person that our office and the chief's office will be reaching out to as we continue the work we're doing and adjust to the new regime under the CSPA.
Great. Welcome, Graham. Want to say a few words? No, I just kidding. I usually do it. Good, well, we look forward to working with you too, sir. Okay, I don't see any other business, so I'm gonna ask Mario and Norma to move us in camera into private session. All those in favor? Against, the motion is carried, so give us a minute to clear the room or what we have to do, or